Hi guys, in this video we're going to be looking at how we can scrape JavaScript rendered websites with Scrapy Playwright. So we're going to go through how to install Scrapy Playwright, how we can render the page using Scrapy Playwright, and then how we can actually interact with the page and get the data we want from this JavaScript rendered website. So the website we're going to be scraping today is Quotes to Scrape, but it's the JavaScript rendered version of this quotes2scrape.com site. So we can actually check out the console and see if we refresh the page. In our network tab, we can see the result here that comes back has no HTML in it. And if we look at the response of this request that came back, we can see that the quotes and all this data is contained within this data array, but it's all JavaScript rendered, so it's only rendered once the page is loaded in our browser. So that's the data that we're going to be pulling out, and what we're going to do next is we're going to go and download this base project that we're going to be using for this tutorial. So I'm just going to git clone this project. Just git clone the project. Perfect. Okay, now I'm going to just cd into the project and I'm going to install a Python virtual environment, and then I'm going to activate that environment, install Scrapy, and then install Playwright. So we've activated it. Let's pip install Scrapy. That can take a couple of seconds. Okay, and now let's pip install Scrapy Playwright. Once that's installed, we're going to run the Playwright install command, which is just going to make sure that Playwright is installed. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our project, go to settings, and we're going to paste in what we need to get a Scrapy Playwright to actually render the page when we load it up. So what we're adding into the settings here is just the download handlers and then another line for Twisted to be able to pick up that we want Scrapy Playwright to render the page for us. Okay, so let's start coding up our spider. We open the spiders folder, go to our quotes spider, and we are going to just start off with a new function, which we're going to call start request, and we're going to provide a URL, which is going to be the website that we're scraping. So quotes to scrape, the JS version of it, and then we're going to return with yield the Scrapy request, and as you can see here we have Playwright set to true in the meta parameter that we're passing through. So let's save that, and now we'll do our parse function. So let's say that we want to loop through all the quotes that are on the page. So for quote in response.css, and I know already that the CSS that we're looking for is the quote class, which is within a div class. So I can save that, and we're going to put everything that comes back into a quote item, which we already have in our items.py. We're going to loop through each quote on the page, put it into a quote item, and the specific bits that we want we just need to list out. So we're going to say return the text of the quote, and that's going to be the quote.css, and then we give it the CSS selector. So it's the span.text, and then we're going to look for the text within that. Then we just need a get. So we're going to take also not just the text, but we're going to take the author, and we're going to take the tags that were on the page as well. So it's div.tags a tag a.tag, and we just want the text within that. And for the author, it's small.author, and again the text within that. So once we have that, we can yield the quote item, and if everything is there that we need, we should be able to run that. We can actually take out these two lines because we now have the start requests, which replaces that, and let's have a go at running that and see if it does work. So to run our spider, all we want to do is Scrapy crawl, and the name of the spider is quotes. Okay, let's see what happened. So we had an error, no module named Scrapy Playwright. So this can sometimes just happen when the Scrapy Playwright is installed. So to get rid of that error, we can just deactivate our environment. So just type in deactivate, and then we can just reactivate the environment once more. So reactivated. Okay, let's just rerun that Scrapy crawl again, and hopefully this time everything should work correctly. So as you can see, yep, that time if we scroll up, we have the text, and then we have the quote, and we have several of them. We have the author, we have the tags, everything came through. So that worked correctly, and we can see there's a browser launched. So launching browser Chromium launched, and then it actually renders the page in the Chromium browser. So just in case you're curious as to where we got those CSS selectors for the author, the tag, and etc., we can go back, right click on any of the quotes, and you can see that we have the text there, which is within quote and text, and then the text is contained within that. So that's where we get, for example, the quote, and the span.text is that this is the span and the class is text. So that's how we are finding all the bits we need on the page. Okay, so that's great. Now that we have that working, let's look at see how we can actually interact with the page using the Playwright page methods. So we're going to use Playwright to do things such as wait for the page to load fully, because sometimes we might actually try to get the data from the page, but the page hasn't fully loaded yet. This is especially true if the page is quite a big page. We're also going to look at how we can scrape multiple pages in a row and do things like scroll. If it's an infinite scroll kind of page, scroll to the bottom of the page so it loads the full page, and then last of all take screenshots of a page as well. Okay, so let's just first off get Playwright to wait for the page to have finished loading. So to do this, we are going to, instead of just having this Playwright true, we're going to pass in a bunch more things into a dictionary. So let's do dict, and in here we're going to just do Playwright equals true. We're also going to do Playwright include page is true. We're going to do the page methods, Playwright page methods, and this is the part that's important for all the actual kind of actions that we want Playwright to do for us. So we're only going to have one page method to start off, and that's going to be wait for a selector, and as you can guess, we're just going to wait for the quotes to have finished loading. And we of course need to import that page method from Scrapy Playwright page. And with that, we're just going to add in an error callback is equal to self dot error back, and we're going to add in at the bottom just that function. This is just to handle the event of a failure. Playwright page, and we're basically just telling it to close the page. Page.close, and we're going to just add async here as well. Okay, let's now try running that and see does it work correctly. So again, we can just do a Scrapy crawl, except this time I'm going to output the results to a JSON file. So we're just going to say results.json and see does that work correctly. Okay, there was an error. Line 16, page methods, page method. Okay, so that's just a typo there. And let's run that again. And it launched the browser and it looks like it ran correctly. Let's check our results.json page and we've got our quotes there and with the authors and everything else. Fantastic. Okay, so now that we have that working, we can now look at how we can actually click through and get multiple pages of data. So this is the page that we're scraping, as you know, and to scrape multiple pages, what we're going to do is basically, we already have it rendering and then running through the first page, and now what we're going to do is once it finishes the first page, it looks to see if the next button is there. We're going to take the URL and we're going to go to the page of that the next URL brings us to. So, okay, so let's do the code for that. So the code is pretty simple. We're just going to be modifying our parse function. And the first thing, actually, what we did forget to put in the last little bit was we should have had a page.close function just to close the Playwright page, because in terms of memory, if we had lots of pages staying open, that would not be good if we were crawling a lot of pages. So basically here we're just putting in the page is response.meta playwright page, and this we're going to once the page is loaded, then we're going to close the page, because we will have everything contained in the response anyway. And because we have no wait here, we need to add an async. Okay, let's now get the next page, and for that we can just get the CSS selector for that button at the bottom of the page, and I've already gotten it before, so I know that it works. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an if next page is not none, then we're going to create the next page URL, which is going to be just the quotes to scrape.com / the next page href. So it's going to get the second part of the URL, put that into the next page, and then it's going to add that onto quotes.toscript.com. And then last of all, we just need it to again yield the Scrapy request. So we're just going to just copy and paste that chunk that we had up there, and we should be able to just put the next page URL, and again we want Playwright to render the next page and to wait for it to load, so we're just going to leave all these other bits like we had above for the initial main page. So basically, if there is a next page button, then we have the URL and we pass it into this Scrapy request with the Playwright settings set. That should be it. So let's try and run that now and see, do we get multiple pages of quotes back from the quotes to scrape site. So let's just run Scrapy crawl again and see what the results are like. So it looks like it's scraping multiple pages. It's a good sign. So now if we open our results.json, we can see that we have over 100 quotes scraped. Okay. So now let's look at how we can actually scrape a JavaScript rendered site with infinite scrolling. So lots of sites like Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. have this infinite scrolling system where you just keep scrolling, and as you scroll and get to the bottom, it loads in more data. So this can be a bit more problematic because obviously there's no button to get a link from. We actually have to get the browser to scroll to the bottom before more data loads in. So we'll show you how to do that now in code. So let's go back to our Spider code, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the page methods again, and we're just going to add in a new page method, and we're just going to say evaluate. Then we're going to tell it to scroll to the bottom. So we're going to do window.scroll by 0 and then document.body scroll height. So we're saying scroll to the bottom of the page, and then we're going to wait for a new quote to appear. So we're going to wait for selector again, just like we did initially when the page loads, except this time we're going to wait for an 11th, one more quote to appear, so that we know that the infinite scroll has actually worked correctly. The only thing we need to do now is just change the URL. So it's going to be, instead of /js, it's going to be /scroll. We just need to remove this next page stuff here because we're not going to be using this, so we can just comment that out for now. And let's do a Scrapy crawl again and see what happens. Okay, so let's just look at the logs here, and if we check item script count is 20, so there's normally only 10 quotes on a page, so it looked like it did scroll down correctly. And if we open up our results.json, we can also see that there was 20 quotes that were scraped. So it did do exactly what we wanted. Okay, so the next part we're going to look at is how we can take a screenshot of the page. So for this, it's quite easy. We are not going to need these 2 lines here because we're not going to be scrolling for 2 pages worth of stuff. We're just going to modify our parse function, and we are going to just get rid of all this, and we don't need to loop through the stuff anymore. And let's just do a screenshot is equal to await page dot screenshot, and then the path is equal to, let's just do example.png. So that's just going to be the name of the screenshot, and then we're going to say full page equals to true. We'll put the close page underneath that because we still need the page there. And okay, I think that's all we need. Render, we can remove those. Okay, so let's try and run Scrapy crawl, and we don't need the results part at the end, and let's see what happens. So that finished running correctly, and if we check, there doesn't seem to have been any errors, so it looks okay. The browser launched okay, and if we actually look at our sidebar here, we can see there's a new file, example.png, that should contain the screenshot, which is just loading, and there you go. So it took a screenshot correctly, just like we wanted it to. So that's the end of that section. If you would like to have a look at the article that goes along with this video, where you can actually get all the different code snippets that we've used to follow along with this video, we'll have that in the description below, so you can follow along and copy and paste in all the sections instead of having to follow the video and type them out manually. So we hope that has given you a good overview of Scrapy Playwright. We also have tutorials on using Scrapy Splash and Scrapy Selenium, so we will also link those in the description below for you to follow along with and check out as well. Thanks guys.